make it. I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of. They say life is what you make it, yeah. Well, I'm a legend in the making, yeah. I know just what I'm made of, yeah, yeah. They say life is what you make it. I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of. They say life is what you make it, yeah. Well, I'm a legend in the making, yeah. I know just what I'm made of, yeah, yeah. They say life is what you make it. I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of. They say life is what you make it, yeah. Well, I'm a legend in the making, yeah. I know just what I'm made of, yeah, yeah. They say life is what you make it. I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of. They say life is what you make it, yeah. Well, I'm a legend in the making, yeah. I know just what I'm made of, yeah, yeah.
Now to a face mask confrontation caught on camera at a grocery store in California. See that shopper there yelling at employees and other customers after refusing to wear a face covering. Will Reeve is at a Trader Joe's here in New York with the story. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, George. That Trader Joe's in North Hollywood had its grand opening that day. Now millions of people know what it looks like inside because of this video. Yet another incident surrounding wearing masks in public. The woman in the video now speaking out to our station in LA. This morning, face mask controversy after this outburst caught on camera in a Los Angeles grocery store.
So anyone harassing me to wear a mask, you guys are violating federal law. You get that? Get that on camera, ma'am.
This Trader Joe's shopper confronted for not wearing a mask in the store. She claims she has a medical reason not to.
I have a breathing problem. My doctor would not let me wear a mask.
The shopper telling ABC station KABC that she had gotten permission from the manager at the Toluca Lake store to go maskless, but accidentally went to the wrong location in North Hollywood, where she said she also got permission, and claims the incident began while she was shopping.
Right away, he started using obscenities at me, and I did what any normal human being, a woman, would do if she was being harassed by a man, not knowing if he's a crazy man. So I start yelling in self-defense.
Earlier this month, California Governor Gavin Newsom made wearing masks in public mandatory, but the state's Department of Health has exempted anyone with a medical condition, mental health condition, or disability that prevents wearing a face covering. Right now, as COVID cases are on the rise in the U.S., 18 states require masks in public, while 32 have no such mandate. The video viewed millions of times and counting. Some people shaming the angry shopper for what they perceived as selfish public behavior.
I have asthma, and I'm wearing my mask. I'm like, there's times I feel like I can't breathe, but I'm like, if I want to be out there shopping, have to get what I have to get done, I have to wear it for the sake of others and for the sake of my health.
The woman in the video did not specify what her medical condition is. Trader Joe's has yet to comment on the incident, but their website clearly states that wearing masks inside their stores is strongly preferred and encouraged. George?
Reeve, thanks. Let's bring Dr. Jen Ashton back to check in with her on this. And Jen, let's start out. What are the possible medical conditions that could keep somebody from wearing a mask in public?
Well, George, in general, if you're well enough to be outside without oxygen, you're well enough to wear a mask. Now, according to the CDC, there are basically three groups of people that glaringly probably should not wear a mask. That's toddlers under the age of 2, people with extreme respiratory distress acutely, and people who are unconscious. So in general, if your breathing condition is well enough to allow yelling or being outside without oxygen, you can wear a mask medically.
Let's talk about what Dr. Birx from the White House Task Force is now calling a new discovery. The mask can partially protect the wearer from getting infected. Is this a big development?
It may be, George. So let's put this into context, medical and historical perspective. Back in January, February, and early March, the reason that the CDC and medical professionals, myself included, was not recommending that the lay public wear masks is because outside of a hospital setting, there was really no data to suggest that it can protect the person wearing it. And we put masks on sick people in hospital settings. When the CDC revised that is because we realized that so many people infected with COVID-19 show no symptoms. So the assumption is that we all may be sick. So that's where that came from. What Dr. Birx was referring to is new data published in The Lancet that suggests that wearing a mask outside of a hospital setting may actually protect the wearer as well. So 2 reasons to mask up.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.
They say life is what you make it. Well, I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of. They say life is what you make it, yeah. Well, I'm a legend in the making, yeah. I know just what I'm made of, yeah. They say life is what you make it. Well, I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of. They say life is what you make it, yeah. Well, I'm a legend in the making, yeah. I know just what I'm made of, yeah. They say life is what you make it. Well, I'm a legend in the making. I know just what I'm made of.
Whew. I hope I'm live. I'm not. If I'm not, I'm going to talk to myself. I'm just saying it's Friday. It's a lot going on, more than I even thought would be going on for a holiday that's on the rise. So I want to take a moment. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, catching us. Unplanned show, one of the shows I would say that I would call spur of the moment, because it's necessary. And you see what going actual live. We don't do. I don't really do a live like this unless there's something that I feel is necessary, because I like to control things. I'm a controller. I like to make sure I know how everything is working. But life is not perfect. Right now, what I need is for you guys to understand that I am here because we need to be here. I have some questions. I had to get my girl. First of all, it's Friday today. I always say every day seems like Friday. It is Friday, and if you can see me and hear me, you are blessed, and so am I, with everything that's going on in the world. Now, I brought my co-host with me. What I love about Cherie Annika Valley Co. is that I can reach out, and I'm honored to have her as my co-host. But there's things that people have to understand about Annika. Cherie Annika Valley Cole is not just an attorney at law for over 16 years. She is a biochemist. She went to medical school. Her father is a doctor. Her brother is a doctor. So what I am saying is I am talking with a doctor, a biochemist, a specialist. So I don't have to reach out and just search for one. I'm fortunate that she can do all of that. But when I have questions and I want answers and I want to give answers to you, I bring her in. So today I reached out and I said, hey, how in the hell did we get back here? And not only we back here meaning how do we get with COVID from slowly opening up and thinking we're moving into a positive direction to a whole full degree U-turn, and it's happening at an accelerated rate. And now when you have people like Rachel Maddow saying we are in a mess, and people like Dr. Fauci saying it's going to get worse, I want to know, where did we go wrong? I mean, I was at home. I wore my mask. But ain't about me. I want to know, what are we doing? What is going on, and what can we do now? And we better figure it out. And so I got some questions, and I know she has some answers. And we're going to get started today because I want to give them to you. I want to educate you on it. And like I always tell you, knowledge is your power. But we have a pandemic that ain't playing. And it is strong. I'm talking about this sucker here. This is a heavyweight champion of the world. You know, it's just a figure of speech. But what I'm freaking saying is, if we don't get this right, you know, at the end of 2020, we're going to be still counting the lives lost that could still be here. There is nothing greater than your life. Nothing. Anything that you want to do, can do, need to do, you can do later. So, Cherie.
Yes, ma'am.
Valley Code, thank you for coming on and for being my co-host, but also being ready to always, because you always want to help and let people know what's going on. Now, I got a question, and some people are going to find this kind of blunt. And but I know you're going to answer me. I know it. What the hell is going on, Cherie? How in the hell did we get here?
Well. Let's see. How shall I put this? I'm also very direct.
Straight, no chaser. Give it to them.
Look, we haven't been doing all that we can as a community. As you know, there has been debate nationwide, internationally, actually, about wearing masks, what type of mask, when to wear the mask, who's got to wear the mask. I think there was a recent poll I reviewed in CNN that indicated that our fear that kind of drove us to listen to the doctor's advice is waning. People tired of being inside. We can talk about the mental health and the stress of living through a pandemic. And then we've got some real changes going on in our world where we got white people jumping up talking about Black Lives Matter and meaning it. So I want to take us back to Memorial Day weekend. We were still debating whether it was time to open up. I think there was a couple of governors out there that were playing crazy and saying that they didn't believe in closing down businesses and they were going to open anything up. I'm thinking of Georgia. I'm thinking of Florida, and maybe
Texas.
Southern states, Republican governors. You know, there has been an attack on the science behind the COVID and a feeling that, you know, that the cure, i.e. socially distancing, washing our hands and staying home and wearing our masks when in public is too much to ask. And that the economy or the surviving of the economy was more important than an individual lives. And so what if a few people die and a few other people die that we don't particularly care about? Well, there was also something else that happened right about that time. And that is another front. We are confronting our history, real history. Let there be no racism deniers in the room. About racism here in the United States. There was the murder. That's what I'm going to use for it. And I'm going to call it first-degree murder of George Floyd by armed, uniformed police officers. Now they're all charged, not with first-degree murder, and they lost their jobs, and I'm sure there'll be civil suits to follow. But during the Memorial Day weekend, there were a lot of people on the streets. Some of them we saw here in LA were trying to protest and exercise their freedom, First Amendment rights, which, you know, I'm a big fan of the first and the second and the third and the fourth and all the other amendments, including the one that emancipated all of us. But, you know, it's kind of hard to protest and keep your social distance. It's also hard to protest and keep your mask. It's also harder to go to jail where you don't control where your body is and whether or not you're there. We learned that we had individuals who were arrested during the protests and ultimately faced no charges, but were still nonetheless arrested and thrown into places with no regard for socially distanced. And that's been an ongoing problem with COVID. We've got prisoners nationwide in various facilities, federal, state, county, city, whatever you want to call it, who are being exposed to COVID through no fault of their own as regarding to COVID-19. So we've got a couple of factors. We also had, I think around Memorial Day, some governors who didn't want to close down the beaches and didn't want to close down hair salons and tattoo parlors. We had to get our tattoos and our hair done and our nails done. And so we saw some reopening. So now we're in a place where we've opened too soon. And now we've got the virus that is mutated. We have no cure. There is no cure. Let me say that again. No cure. We know the virus is mutated, and now there is a version of the virus that's easier to catch because it's getting better at infecting humans. It has evolved. It's not necessarily more dangerous in terms of deadly to individuals, but it is certainly easier to catch this particular virus now. And we got a lot of people who are afraid and a lot more people who aren't afraid and are going out and doing things that we have been implored to not do. Now we've got the 4th of July weekend, and we here in California had a governor that had to start closing things down again. Dining rooms are closed here.
Yes.
Beaches are closed here. And, you know, it's a 3-day beautiful weekend, and a lot of things are closed. And the reality is there's still no cure. The hospitals in California are overwhelmed. There are 19 counties that have been ordered to shut down whatever they've opened and in duress, including LA County. LA County is indeed a hotspot. So you've got the reality of we opened up too soon. Some places never closed down completely the way they should have. And everybody's tired of following the basic rules of stay 6 feet from the next person, wear your mask, and wash your hands. So that's a long, verbose answer to what seemed like a very simple question, right?
Very long, but no, it was needed. So now my thing is, with all of these and all of everything that you're saying, where do we go from here?
First, we're going to make it worse. I mean, that's the reality. Dr. Fauci.
Wait. Now I said, where do we go from here? And you said we're going to make it worse?
We're going to make it worse. The pandemic is going to get worse. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is we have another pandemic that is on its way to us. I don't know if you remember in 2009, there was a pandemic called the swine flu. Well, there is a new version of the swine flu. It's on its way. It should be here by relatively soon. So this pandemic that we're in, COVID-19, will still be here. And we will have another pandemic to contend with. These two pandemics will probably combine and make it harder not easier to shut down COVID-19. We are hopeful that one of the vaccines that is being put together can, in fact, be put to work before the end of 2020 or early 2021. The problem is that we frankly don't know enough about COVID-19 to be certain that anything that we use will be effective. And we've got a skyrocketing number of people who are just not obeying common sense rules and going out there, getting infected and infecting others. They're not washing their hands. They're not staying 6 feet from others. They're not wearing masks. And in fact, we've had, if you go on Yahoo or any kind of social media device, you see time and time again confrontations about masks in public spaces, private spaces, going back and forth. And then, we're also just tired. There's a lot of fatigue. Not only are we're getting used to COVID-19 and the threat it poses, we're also just scared and tired of being in our houses and being clustered. Our mental health is suffering. We need a mental health break. And the economy. A lot of the jobs that were created are jobs that involve going out and exposing yourself. So we have essential workers going out and putting literally their lives on the line for a paycheck. And that continues to happen. So, you have all these factors combining to suggest that things are going to get worse before they get better. Now, we have been accused by the international medical community of hoarding remdesivir, which is the medication that we believe is helpful for those once you are impacted by COVID or infected by the virus. The problem is that that's a small fix in relation to the damage that we're not even all sure that COVID can do. At this point, they are discussing neurological symptoms and other basically side effects of the COVID virus that are quite significant and people are going to have to be dealing with potentially lifelong. We've had youngsters who needed double lung replacements. We've had amputations. We've had a replacement of other major organs in the system, because COVID attacks not just your lungs. It can attack basically any major organ, including your heart, your brain, and your blood. It's just a very traumatic infection. And once you get it, who knows what it can do. I'm scared because the people around me who are all physicians are scared. Usually physicians have some sort of approach that would make sense. And, that if this happens, someone can save your life. Well, right now, the doctors are scared. The doctors are saying there is no cure. The doctors are saying the hospitals are full. The doctors are saying people are dropping like flies. Stay home. So I'm going to stay home.
Well, with the 4th of July coming, and this is a time that we all enjoy. And I did step out yesterday. I had to pick up something urgent. And then stepping out for that quick second and having my mask on, I always double it. It sounds crazy. And I go in, I look around, and it's just people everywhere. And they're finding the little outfits for the kids for the 4th. And then, and they're doing little things. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? Seriously, I was thinking, and then I had just heard it before I went out that children can give it to adults and children can catch it and things like this. So there's a little baby there in the buggy, and she doesn't have a mask on, and she's coughing and sneezing and coughing. So I have to walk 4 hours down and go all the way back around. And my wife got mad because I wanted to snatch that darn baby, and give it to her and say, give this baby a mask. And my wife said, you normally don't say things like that about little children. I said, that's the sad thing about COVID. It's got us to the point where even the little kids are a danger, And so it's a situation that all of us want to enjoy ourselves. But we're talking about one freaking 4th of July right now. You understand what I mean? We're talking about one. One. I have a relative that is facing cancer that is at her last. And I promise you, she probably would give anything to be, back healthy. But aside from that, they have to be in the hospital and they have to be away from everybody because of COVID. So they can't have anybody that hold them when it's over or any of this. My point is, there's always a reason for the things I say. Your life is valuable. And this is not something where you go see the doctor, he tests you, and you stuck with it where you got breast cancer. This is something that you can prevent.
Mm-hmm.
You can prevent. They say you can prevent that, but I'm talking about like where you literally see that what's going on and you're being told what you need to do to prevent it. You understand what I'm saying? And
I hear you.
so now I had you on today, the day before the 4th of July, to tell everyone that was a family that 28 members of that family had COVID and the dad died. Nobody in that home. One death is one too many. One loss is too great. We can do this later. It'll be greater later. We can celebrate later, okay? We can celebrate now y'all want to celebrate every holiday, but like she said, we're tired. I'm worn. I want to get out. I have dreams of doing things that I hadn't even done in a while. So yes, when you like this, you want to do, but now you got to ask the question because see, we have done the protests. Everything happens for a reason. But look at where we are, especially Florida, Texas. You get what I mean? Now, I think Europe doesn't even want to let us in the country. Now, here's the things I want y'all to think about real quick. And I want to ask a question. I'm going to ask this question. But here's the thing I want you to think about. If we get locked down, well, we can't leave this country. I don't want to be locked in the damn United States with number 45. And I can't get the hell away. And I can't run off somewhere, Canada, somewhere. You understand what I'm saying? If you can't leave out a country, America has become something like nothing I've ever thought I'd see in my 50 years.
Never thought we'd see this.
And Trump, it is similar to, Stacey Abrams said it. He's similar to remember the president of Turkey? The Turkey where he took control, and this thing here is getting crazy. So what we need to do is listen and try to hold on to that election in November. I got a bag full of fireworks. You ain't finna arrest me. I'm not finna go outside and pop them now. I'm constantly keeping fireworks and stocking up on fireworks, some of the best of them. Now I'm gonna pay my fine like I should. But on November 11th, if they tell me that a pickle is president, I'm gonna be lighting my fireworks and drinking my champagne and have my check ready for the police, right there, my $1,500 fine, whatever that fine is. But the second time I'm gonna celebrate gonna be January 1st. If that fool really check up out of whatever that date is of inauguration, if he walk out that mug, and I don't care if you drag him out, I'm gonna be popping fireworks. Now, Cherie, people ain't gonna like this question. I don't care, but I'm hardcore today. I don't give a damn because we don't know what's gonna happen. What's killing black folks more? Because we were talking, we're talking, and we're being murdered by the police.
You've been deep with the questions now.
Yeah, because we were marching. Black Lives Matter march, and they're now getting understood, and people are giving them the respect they deserve. And they're marching because we have lost and are still losing young Black men and women. So in 2020, what's killing Black folks more, racism or COVID-19? Now, let me tell you why I can ask you this, though. I want you to understand, I can ask you this because you're a prosecuting attorney who's going to soon one day be a judge, and you are a doctor. So what is killing Black folks more in this damn year, racism or COVID-19?
Well, I was a former prosecutor for 16 years with the City Attorney's Office of LA. And I do have a doctorate in law. I'm not a medical doctor. I did go to medical school, and I'm a biochemist by training. I'm going to have to say, my big fear right now is, right now they're both pretty rampant, and having lived a lifetime, I think we were talking about, you and I are about the same age generation, and we were talking about the masks that we wear. And I'm not talking about our COVID-19 mask when we go to Costco. I'm talking about the masks that we wear as Black folks who move through corporate and mainstream America. And we kind of got used to the rules. And there's some change afoot. Some of it is very positive. But what we know is with change and awareness, there's always retaliation. So we've had nothing but, day after day of the newest post about what we call Karen, basically a white woman who's used to her privilege, who acts badly in a matter in public, and the consequences for that. And I think there was a great article that was put out that talked about there's always been a Karen. I don't know if you recall the Emmett Till murder, gruesome murder of a young African-American boy. I'm going to call him not a man, boy in a derogatory word, but he was, I think, 14 years old at the time of his murder. And his great crime was a Karen, a woman, made allegations that he was sexually inappropriate with her, and it ended up with a gruesome murder. And there is, it talks about the toxicity of a Karen-like personality, and I guess there were other words that were used for it. Karen is the one that's being used on the internet or social media at this point. And there is, reality is that there are physical, financial, and emotional consequences of racism. Financial, we can do the statistics all day long, but a Black woman makes X amount with similarly situated white woman, and then the white woman makes X amount of a white man, and a Black man makes, we can talk about the gender and racial disparities, but they're very clear. There's environmental racism where Black people tend to live, or predominantly African-American communities are located in right next to the toxic dump or built over the toxic dump. There's societal racism with regards to education, work training, you name it, it happens. There is, and I'm not sure that we have come up with a cure. Here in California, they're bringing back something we had talked about before, affirmative action. And when I was applying to schools, affirmative action was legal and considered necessary. And then there was, of course, a backlash, and it was then deemed unconstitutional or illegal or both. And now there is a move by the California legislature to put it back on the November ballot, asking Californians to agree that that is an appropriate mechanism to eliminate racism. And one of the questions I had asked, we had talked about, is what do we really think is going to make it go away, racism? And the pandemic, we will eventually find a vaccine, and then there'll be distribution of the vaccine. But I think what's making the pandemic worse, it's based on a history of racism where Black people are in poorer financial condition to withstand the economic downturn, poorer physical condition because we have fewer grocery stores in our area, and we have some more of the underlying conditions that make us more susceptible to the pandemic, the heart disease, the diabetes, the asthmas. We live in communities that are more congested, making it harder to socially distance and practice some of the other recommended things. So I think the pandemic and its impact on African Americans or Africans in general in this country has been, compounded by a history, legacy, and reality of racism. So I'm going to say that racism is probably the bigger threat to our community at this point, because I'm not sure that I see a vaccine, if you will, for racism being developed. with the same level of fortitude and energy as the vaccine that's being put together for the COVID-19 pandemic.
Got you. So then basically, the pandemic will slowly, as with the flu, we'll get the vaccine shot. There's a vaccine, we'll get the vaccination shot, and it'll probably, but racism is something that's totally different. Would you call it a pandemic then? Hard question, huh?
That's actually a pretty hard question. I have to say, the world that I have grown up with, and the rules of that world are changing. And I never thought or even considered it a possibility in my lifetime that they would change so dramatically in such a short time. And it's almost as if I remember thinking, if I was a Black person and they used to keep me racially segregated, I'd be the one that would sit on the white side and confront. And what would I have done in the 1960s civil rights movement? Well, I don't have to ask myself those hypotheticals anymore, because I believe we are in the midst of a civil rights movement of the 2020s. And so I get to answer that question with real information. And also I can see that my children will one day look at me and say, how did she tolerate this level of racism? How did she tolerate the things that you and I are used to? And the obligation that we wear our mask. And when I speak now of masks, I'm not talking about masks that we wear to protect ourselves from COVID-19. I'm talking about the masks that you and I and any successful African American in this country has learned to put on to get the education or the resources they needed to do whatever it is they're going to do.
Or keep the job that we had that we knew secured our family.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that's why I asked, is racism a pandemic? Because it kills you slowly inside. And when I say that, I say it with your integrity, your dignity, your pride, if you allow it. Because I saw an actor one day on Instagram after Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed for just out jogging. This actor went jogging real quick. What he said though was he was holding his mask. He normally would run without it. This time he tried to run as long as he could with it. And everybody knows he acts. He's a well-known actor. And he was in tears, and he said the mask. And he wasn't talking about the mask for COVID-19. And he was saying, we wear this mask. And as you said, in our age group, and I'm 50, not ashamed to say it. And I would say down maybe 5 more years. And I would say it's 8, really. Because in your 30s, no. We were, even if we are as strong as we are, we knew that we were shake and bake. You know what I mean? They baked us and we shaked it off. Baked us mean you could work a job. I had one. You could bust your ass on that job. Know the job from front to back, and they'll bring someone in a little younger than you, a little bit complexion for the protection. Tell you just train them. They knew we're gonna place them here. Then they place them in a job you've worked for years that you're ready for. Mm-hmm. Call you in a room and tell you we got a better plan for you. Don't worry, and we're gonna give you a little bit more money. But this job, trust me, you don't want that job. It's da. And for a minute you fool yourself and you say, oh, okay, maybe I didn't. Because you try to trust them. And as time go by, you see. And then we're guilty of sometimes we would work. My job I had to pull the freaking qualifications of what my job entailed. You know what I mean? As a campaign manager, whatever, I had to pull what it was, because then you end up doing 15 things for one paycheck. And it got to the point where people would say, don't let them know you know that. because instead of them hiring someone else to do it, they're going to slide you over there, but no pay. Now that is something that I watched them bring a white person in, and that white person said, I ain't doing this shit. I'm not doing all that. They're going to have to pay me. And sure enough, in 2 to 3 weeks or a month, they either got a raise or got the hell out. And when they said they were going to leave, they would call them in the office. So the mask is when you sitting there knowing this stuff is going on and you want to, you get what I'm saying? The mask is the reason I'm sitting at home, because as I got older, the mask was slowly coming off anyway. My kids already
and I think the problem is now we have our generation. I would say I'm 49, and I believe our generation, I would say, goes as low as 40-ish. I think we were all trained kind of the same way. And I was riding down the I-10 freeway here in Los Angeles with my dad, and we looked up and we saw this big sign that said Black Lives Matter. And I looked at my father, who had recently had a heart issue and had to be hospitalized. And I said, did you ever think in your lifetime that you would look up in the middle of downtown Los Angeles and see one of the most prominent signs being used to publicize Black Lives Matter? He said no. And he told me that he had lived through 3 different riots here in Los Angeles, and he just couldn't believe what was happening in this world. And I said, me neither. So I'm right there with my dad. And it was good because we talked about, what sparked the first riot, what sparked this, I had lived through the second, and I guess this is considered the third, the 2020 civil rights movement. But it was interesting. He basically said it was the same thing, that basically a white person did something really, really, really out of pocket, wrong, and that it caused or sparked an awareness that, hey, we better take off our masks or we're not going to be here. Mask or not. The mask is insufficient. So, I do believe that it's going to be appropriate to keep this momentum going. We see Karen Bass has been named as a potential VP to your Biden.
Yeah, I saw that.
It hadn't really been mentioned too highly before. Very intelligent, very experienced Congresswoman, very clear about her expectations of the world. And I'm fascinated by the fact that she's being named as one of the potential running mates for Joe Biden. I think that's fabulous. We've talked about, reparations were something that our generation was really kind of poo-pooed as, the lazies within our culture, the entitled, you don't want to be one of those lazy Black folks, do you, who just thinks and believes in handouts, do you? 40 acres and a mule, do you? Oh no, I believe in education and working hard and doing it yourself. Now there's a discussion about reparations that really does kind of make a little bit more sense in terms of, you can see that, when you look at things like home ownership, savings, education, and just ability to withstand some of the pressures that life normally throws at one, you can see that there has been a direct economic benefit of enslavement. And for lack of a better way of expressing myself, so, that conversation is open. And then the question, what is the remedy for racism? There are some people, many are and that's where you've seen this upsurge of the Ken and the Karens arming themselves or behaving badly in public, calling the police on a man who was bird watching, shooting a Black man because he's running in public, killing a man because he may have had a counterfeit 20, slowly on videotape, shooting a man who has bested you in a fight in a Wendy's parking lot and has his back to you. I really don't have an answer for that particular shooting, because all I keep thinking to myself is, why didn't you just let him go? Why didn't you just let him go? And there really isn't a good answer to that. And then I've just learned that there were the 4 officers who killed the young man playing the violin and small pound weight. I want to say Brooks in Colorado, who have recently been fired for reenacting his encounter with law enforcement. So you have a group of people who get it, who are woke, for lack of a better word. We are waking back up and realizing that negotiations back on the table. We maybe can take some of our mask off, or maybe some days we can take the mask off, or maybe we can wear a different lighter mask. We've got the ballot initiative coming in here in California to put affirmative action on the table. I think there's some legislative issues regarding reparations, but what is the remedy or the solution to racism? And really is that probably, the death of those who believe in racism, older generations dying out, and understanding that their behavior is just no longer what society expects of them. And whether they die out in terms of coming forth publicly and seeking political office, or they die out, they actually literally die out, or they recognize that their view is no longer the majority view, even though they made themselves once see themselves as the majority view, I think is something to look forward to. So there is some hope, I think, in all that we're seeing going on.
Keep hope alive.
Somebody got to do it.
But the thing about it is, I think that they will really die out because we're not gonna live forever. But the system, I agree that the system. Someone watches said system has to change for systemic racism to be gone. Now that question is, how do you change a system that has been that system for hundreds of years? Really, we definitely when we have to realize something. We're in a place. I'm gonna be real. You're not gonna like what I'm saying. We're in a place, the United States. United States has a lot to answer for, because we started with Indians. You killed them off, took the land. Then you go over. You have to think about everything. You bring over slaves. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Right.
You bring them in, and you have them against their will from another country and take away everything that they ever knew, and from their history, everything. That's the problem with us as African Americans. Because I read somewhere where it's like, well, you're talking about police killing you, but you guys are killing each other right and left. There was a lot of black on black crime. We were.
Right.
I say were because it's not as bad as it used to be. The thing about it is
Chicago begs to differ, but okay.
Yeah, they would beg to differ. But basically, you really have to know who you really are, in order to understand where you need to be. And there is a conflict there, because if you look at roots, there's a reason for this. From that time when he was born and he held him up, remember he said, "You behold." That was the heritage of how things were. And each generation, it changed more and more. Now we're going to go back to what a young woman said. I was watching something someone sent me, and I forgot. Tavis Smiley used to have these shows where the Black Caucus, and they would talk about things. So there was a very powerful woman speaking, and she said that for us, we are in need of repairing. So because I'm not speaking money when I say reparation. Reparation means to repair something. You did destroy something within the culture of who we are. First of all, when we were integrated, that was a setup plan. Do you follow what I'm saying? Because there was another way to control us. Keep in mind, at the time when you gave us something back then, there was always something behind it. because then it gave them power and control from the schools inside the homes. Do you follow what I mean? You can't spank your kids. You can't do this. You can't do that. Then it gave them control over our children. A lot of young boys, a lot of kids, if it were slow learning, that teacher didn't want to put the energy in, they threw them in special ed. Special ed led to prison. You have how many? We had Channing Martinez on talking about what 40 million or so many billion or whatever it was, and whatever the number was, crazy, ludicrous, in prison. That's another part of enslavement and infringement. You get what I mean? And when the man did something, a person did something, get out of jail, then you didn't want to give them a job. And if you did give them a job, they couldn't vote. Like she said, we call that taxation without representation. Then you had to tell the parents how they could raise their kids. You can't spank them. They took the spanking out of the school. They did this. Now you got a situation when we talk about what led to gangs and why this became black on black crime. All this was set up for us. Then you said if the black man to have a job and the wife wants some money, he can't be living in that house. We can give you food stamps and welfare. So we take the father out the home. Guys, don't forget about all this stuff. Come on now. So there's a lot we got to sit down and talk about. So then we do that. So then now let's flash back with the children. You can't do anything to them. If they're going to send a scan or whatever they used to call it in on you, they're going to pull them out the house, put them in foster. You're scared to whoop your child because you're scared you're going to lose your child. To keep him in order, just to not beating on him, but keep him in line. Because we used to do this. I used to do just like that. And my sons would stop. I don't care if it was 100 people in a crowd. Because they knew that, look, man, don't make me come over there. And if I come over there, do you follow what I'm saying? They knew what mama would do. That's the fear that you needed. You didn't have to use your hand. You had already put everything in place. So then they get into school, the school scared, the superintendent scared, everybody scared, you got everybody afraid, and then you got the teachers scared of the parents dealing with the teachers, the parents scared of the kids, and the kids ain't scared of nobody. Do you understand what I'm saying? So now we got a system.
I understand. I actually was, my husband and I do not use corporal punishment with our 2 children, and one of mine is special needs. And I will say, though, that my husband and I also were both corporal punishment recipients, if you will. So, you know, I guess the jury's still out on which one works better or what not. But I do think that a system, as you just mentioned, there are many different systems, and they have impacted with this differently. And if we start looking at those systems, you know, like the 3 strikes you're out rule, or what is a felony versus what is a misdemeanor, or what is the age that we say, you know, you should have known better and you should change. Should it be 18, or should it be different for men whose minds don't formulate until a certain age, be a higher or lower? You know, just many different reforms we see here in Los Angeles again, are just reformulation of who do we want to show up when we press 911? You know, I remember reading an article where they said 911, which is something I'm used to, was created in response to Kitty Genevieve's murder, where a white woman was murdered basically in public, and no one bothered to call the police. I guess back in the day, you actually had to know your local police station number, or I'm not actually sure. And then that's what created the 911 system. And I think the 911 system is a good system. But I do think that the idea of sending social workers, whether it's a domestic violence counselor or as people with mental health issues, would be appropriate social services, because people call 911 for a variety of reasons. And I think one response does not fit all. And unfortunately, they can have deadly consequences. And we are the ones who have historically been more on the losing side of the deadly consequences, Black and brown people. We need to talk about, how are all these Black and brown men in jail? Are they all rapists? I don't think so. Are they all murderers? Probably not. What is the crime or crimes that they're doing that are putting them in jail? Probably property crimes, my guess. And if it's property crimes, why do people commit property crimes? Is it because they have a drug habit or they're trying to support their family? And then what's the consequences, as you mentioned, of now you have a felony on your record preventing you from getting gainful employment? It's almost having to check the I've been fired box. Have you ever been fired? Well, yes. Well, guess what? If you were fired from that last job, we're not going to even give you a chance on this job. So we really need to talk about reformative policies, just things. I recently applied for a job, and my current job does not provide references. So they have taken the position that we will not boost you up, make it easier for you to leave us, but we also won't hold you back. So they provide neutral job references that say, this is her name, this is her date of hire, this is what she does for us, and she's still doing it until she quits. And they actually even hire a third-party vendor to do that. So there's no allegation that someone gave you a bad reference because they're mad at you or they're vindictive, or gave you a negligent reference because they want to get rid of you and they want to dump you on another employer. So we need to really think about what are the systems in place that we think are valuable and are helpful. And then we also need to think about which systems in place that we don't like, that we think we need to change. Busing was an attempt to change the educational opportunities for poor Black and brown kids. Okay, so that's a great goal. But forced busing, forcing white privileged children to be educated in poor, low-income areas may not be quite the remedy that we're looking for. So all of this is on the table. And I think that's good it's on the table because we really need to look hard at ourselves. If we're going to make America great again, we actually need to do something, because right now we can't even go to Europe on a vacation anymore because the Europeans are saying, we don't know Americans up in here. So we need to start making America great again. And that means being honest with our history. I mean, I cheer every time I see that someone's pulled down this statue or that. In Yale, where I went to school, I haven't heard yet that they are changing the names of the residential colleges, because there's so many that they celebrate that I would like not to be celebrated, that they would probably spend the rest of their endowment. But I digress.
Well, again, let me ask you a question. I never thought about the question. Why do we have police? I mean, what does it start at? Because I had a young guy on, and Channing again Martinez, who was wanting to defund the police, and I know that it's needed and everything, but now he was saying the history of that, of having the police, was because the police were first used to catch slaves. You know what I mean? And bring them back.
What?
The police were first used during slavery to catch runaways and bring them back.
I do believe there were slave catchers, for lack of a better phrase. But that is a great question as to what do, I mean, honestly, I think their role is to protect and serve. I think how they do that may be really to bring other resources with them, because to serve may require a mental health professional or a social services worker or a housing specialist. So protection being their first mandate probably is just to restore order and to protect. I can also think there may have been a genesis in, I don't know if you recall, posses and deputizing people.
Yeah, I remember all that. I'm
There's
older.
been, I think, a Florida sheriff who's threatening to deputize anybody with a gun.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that too. I said, "Wow, he's from Gunsmoke, huh? He must be
I,
old."
I'm like, he's going old school,
Yeah.
and and we can see that can have disastrous consequences. We have here in, I think, Compton, a young man, 18, good kid, shot dead by the sheriff's department. He was actually hired as a security guard for a business that had suffered a lot of property crimes, and given it a weapon or had a weapon. We don't know the origin of the weapon just yet. Andres Guardado is who I'm thinking of. A brown young man, good kid, essentially now dead, because he took a job as a security guard and didn't have any identification on him, meaning physically that the sheriff could recognize that he was a security guard as opposed to a suspect, and shot him and killed him. So, being a police officer, a member of law enforcement, is a profession, and I have great respect for those who go through the training, and it's a very difficult job. We ask a lot of law enforcement, and I am married to a police officer, and I have great respect for what he does, and he's still out there as one of the essential workers during this pandemic, and a lot of New York coppers have died as a result of COVID-19, and other first responders. I think that there is a role, and I'm not sure that I agree with the defund the police policies in terms of removing the money from the police. I do believe that we should reorganize our county or government services so that the right agency or agencies respond to each call. And how you do that, I'm not really sure. I mean, do we have a menu on 911? Press 1 if you would like a police officer. Press 2 if you'd like a rescue ambulance. Press 3 if you would like a mental health worker. Press 4. I think that's from a Saturday Night Live skit where they talked about. Press 1 if you're being murdered. Press 2 if you're just being raped. Press 3 if you're someone's stealing your car. And if you've ever called 911 like I have and been put on hold and know that there actually is such a menu, which I found to be extraordinary, and not in a good way. I was chasing or we were following a drunk driver, and he was pretty out of control on a freeway, and I was on hold for 15 minutes before someone came on the line. And I thought that, and then a couple of times we got, press 1 if you're still following a DUI driver and they haven't answered your call yet. Press 2 if you're being murdered. And I'm like, who puts 2 as murder? Like that,
you being murdered, that's not something you got time to do.
Right. So I mean, I as the world has changed, let's just recognize, as the world has changed and more people have phones and they're different phones and they're tied in different ways. I think that we should evolve our response to those calls as needed. I mean, I think that would be appropriate. But the idea that the police are the problem, I think they are the scapegoats, because we all are the problem. I think we talked about how us and wearing our mask kind of aided and embedded racism, because
it's like Eddie Glaude said. He said, you can put it on Trump, you can put it here because that's easy, but this is us. This is America. And he said we came from a group, he was talking about you and I, an age range, that buried the brunt of this. We wanted to believe the myths and all this, that everything was okay. And in reality, America, all of us have to face the truths.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what I think I shared with you previously, that I had an optometry appointment and I had an Asian optometrist, and he says, "What's all this about lives matter? Like, we don't talk about race. That's part of the rules. We don't talk about race. We're supposed to pretend race doesn't matter. We're supposed to," and he was crying. I mean, there were tears coming out of his eyes. He's like, "You're about the same age as me." He had my DOB. And I said, "Yeah." I said, it's a new world. I said, people are looking at things differently. He goes, I said, "Colorblind does not work. That's not what we're saying." And he said, "But all lives matter." I said, "But they don't. Isn't that what we're saying when we say Black Lives Matter? That if all lives matter, why would we have to point out that Black Lives Matter?" I said, if Black Lives Matter, how did George Floyd die? If Black Lives Matter and Ahmed Artery die? I mean, this is 2020 and we're having this conversation. And if Black Lives Matter, why is our president talking about the Kung Fu pandemic? And, he was crying. He said, "I was used to the world that we had all agreed to, where we all pretended that racism didn't exist, and that we could still have a good life and ignore it."
But what I'm brought about when you say that, and I hear that. Sad thing about it to me was when there's something you guys should watch on YouTube where Cornel West is on with Anderson Cooper, and Anderson Cooper's in tears, and Cornel West is talking about Black people and saying how we've never really tried to harm anyone. As far as especially when you talk about white America. As he said, "Eve, through everything, through the slavery, through the beatings, through everything, we loved you. You know what I mean? We tried. We prayed for you. You get what I mean?
We tried to make it work.
We kept trying to give." Yeah, he just let them know. He said, "Through everything." He said, "Because we had them Southern Baptist parents and we had this religion that told us that we had to keep loving you." And you do this, you say, "Forgive us, we forgave you." When that man went in and killed those 9 people or 7 people in the church, they were praying with him first before he killed every one of them.
And they would have prayed with him after if they
had. And they would have prayed with him. Come on. And then, as he says, he brought up where the sister, remember, the brother forgave the woman that killed his brother, that lady, that cop that killed that young Black man. And
That's right.
And he said, George Floyd's funeral, they didn't speak of hate. They spoke of love. They even said his mother was a woman that loved everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a race of love. And I had said that on my first show. I had a woman, I said again, she came out, nigga. I hate all niggas. And my thing was, what have we done to you? What have we done so bad to you?
I think,
and when is it gonna ever end? Is it going to end?
This is what I told the optometrist, and before I gave him a hug, yes, I did hug my optometrist in Costco, yes. In Alhambra, yes. Because he had tears running down his eyes, and he's a human being, and he was a good person, and he was healing me. He was healing my eyesight. I told him that we have to keep things nonviolent. And I am a person who believes in nonviolence. And I used to think that I would get violent if the moment of the opportunity presented itself. But I believe that Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and all those who came before, after, and during got it right. If what we really want is peace and freedom, then we need to demonstrate what we want. We can't say one thing and do another. And what we really are talking about is the removal of this hierarchy of the world that we have, for some reason, various ways, in various times, have bought into, that says whites on top, everybody else is underneath. Now, where underneath, we can negotiate later. But we're really talking about removing that, which is a pillar of just about every society we live in. I mean, I see Asian women walking around here with umbrellas because they don't want to get dark from the sun. That's their aesthetic, right?
So what do you say, though, to someone that feels like that peace and freedom is not working? Because They weren't peaceful when they stole us, kept us, and they haven't been peaceful with us in any of these years. I'm just asking, what would you say to someone like that? Because if they seem to feel like that,
Why not get violent? They've gotten violent with us.
yeah.
It's the kind of the same argument. Frankly, this is not a very popular argument. It's the same argument as how do you hit your kids and then tell them to not hit?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same logic. Okay. So if our logic is you shouldn't have stolen us, you shouldn't beat us, you shouldn't rape us, you shouldn't put us in, isolated communities with the worst environment around us, then we shouldn't do that to anybody else. If our goal is peace, if our goal is retribution or revenge, which I do think that for some mainstream Americans, that's their fear, that if they acknowledge the existence of white privilege, well, shouldn't we just reverse everything? Like literally, like, I don't know if you used to watch Planet of the Apes. I've thought about a Twilight Zone episode where they put a human in a cage and they open it up and this human is now in a cage. And it makes you think about what we've done to animals and opening up zoos and using circuses. I mean, do we need to write a book where we literally treat, if we just flip-flop black and white and said, I think it would really dawn on them, oh, wow, whoa, I think with retribution and revenge, which are natural feelings and consequences of oppression, but I think what we really want is peace and hope for our children, right?
Yeah, we want a better world, a better place.
We want a better world, and my daughter's a little bit darker than me, and I wanted a world where she feels good about that, not where she is right now, which is I'm literally the darkest person in my school right now, Mom. I'm literally, and she goes, and why is it every time we talk about Martin Luther King, everybody looks to me to answer the questions, Mom? Why is that? I'm like, welcome to being Black, Chica. Why is it that we post on the internet? I remember I had a Facebook friend who started a question that says, when did you first realize you were Black? And what we're really asking each other is, when did you realize the negative consequences of what it means to be Black? Okay. And for some people, it's later in life. I remember my cousin told me I was Black and I was like, not me. And
not me, like an insult, huh?
Like, no, for real. I mean, we had a whole debate. She's like, you're my cousin, my dad's your brother, your dad's brother, and therefore you're Black. And I was, and it's silly now when you think about it. But what I was really saying was, I don't want to have the stress of what it's like to be Black, because we all know that to be Black is to be maligned, to be treated badly and not preferred. And so she put out this post and what was the example? And people gave different examples of when they went into a store and they were mistreated, or one woman talked about someone talking about her braid of hair. And for me, it was the argument with my cousin, and the different things of what that meant and the awareness. And then, and very recently, there's been articles that talked about racism and the stress of being a person of color or a minority in this community. And now I can understand why some of our ancestors went back to Africa or to more mainstream, different countries where they were the majority, like Jamaica. And, how that might relieve some of the stress, but that's a small part of the world. And it's not where we came from, and our lives are vested here, and so there are different ways to repair us, restore us. What if reparations meant that we had something like affirmative action on the job? We've talked about this varsity blues investigation out of USC, and you have all these very entitled, privileged white folks buying their way into top-notch universities, including my alum. And what no one has really thought about is the next step of the educational system and where these people have landed. And so you've got all these very not competent people in very, very high up positions who are not competent. And they know they're not competent, and they've basically been riding on everybody's coattails. And now they're going to be confronted potentially because they're going to be found out. So there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of discussion. And I think it should be a discussion about what are the reparations that need to be done. You know what I'm saying? Can they force marriages?
You're trying to think about how can we repair.
Right.
But
if
we
you
put an agreement there
should
should be
the black men in jail, and you make all these single moms parent by themselves. What's the reparation? Like, allow black women to engage in you understand what I'm saying? Like, how do you repair? How do you restore?
But my thing is, why have they never tried to address it at all?
Because it's such a big problem. It's like, have you ever watched Hoarders? And it's such an overwhelming problem. Everybody's had some part of it or benefited from it. It's a really hard problem, and I have been grappling with it since I think we first broached. We've got this new awareness. What do we do with it? What's the solution? And I'm not really sure that I've heard an answer yet. Do we make the next 25 presidents must be a black person? Do we use quotas? There's downsides of that, as well. Is it about money?
Well, Mike was talking about that. He was saying something about money and a union because he feels like a lot of different races kind of help each other. You know what I mean? And he was thinking like you get the money, but you had to be in the union, like you had to invest in each other. You get what I mean? To help build and help get us back on the even keel that we should have been on.
And is that going to really help us, or is it going to divide us more? My nephew is, my brothers and I are half black. So my nephew is 25% black. So his daughter is 12 and a half. Does she get into the union, or is she out? And so it's just a lot of math, and it's also a lot of questions about, we've resolved that in the past with, if you 1% black, you in. So
but that's the rule they created.
Well, we resolved it, meaning we accepted it, we've perpetuated it. So I think if you want into this union, you get into this union, frankly. And even people without a 1% who've wanted into this union for different reasons. But I think, really, I think one really good idea that's come through is just not just taking down the monuments nationwide and from our nation's capital, but also talking about how we teach history. And I remember history always being introduced as this, requiring a perfect memory because it was all factual. Well, history is really a whole bunch of she said, we said, it's a whole lot of stories.
Yes.
We tried it in a more interactive, more inclusive way, not with white on top and whitey came and discovered America. No, America was here, fool. And you know what I'm saying? Like, America was here. America was here. Now, you may just have woken up and bumped into us, but didn't mean there was nothing here worth noting. And really respecting the Native American community, really respecting the other conflicts. There have been conflicts between Mexico and the Native Americans, and there have been times when Mexico was on the side of the United States. Let's be honest about the fact that a lot of my folks, because I am half brown, are doing jobs that Caucasians don't want to do. And now the prices are going up for some basic fruits that we're so used to enjoying here at luxury prices, at low prices. So I think we're talking about labor and the redistribution of labor. And with that redistribution of labor goes redistribution of financial resources. Let's talk about this essential worker thing, those who must go out and be the first to get COVID-19 versus those not. You know, there's some have and have nots there. Those who continue working from home, those who cannot work from home. So, and what kind of society do we really want? What is the American dream? Not and how is it turned into an American nightmare for some? And how can we revive that dream? How can we make America great again? How can we revive that dream for everyone? Because I think that's part of the American dream, that everyone have a shot. Everybody, however minute. Yes, you get to, give your kids the benefit of your wisdom and your experience and all of that. We all want that opportunity. No one's trying to deny that to anyone, but we need to make the American dream a possibility again and real for everyone who's willing to do the work to get there. So I think that's kind of the conversation that we need to have. And a lot of people don't want to redistribute the eggs after they've gotten all the eggs.
Well, one thing about it, if you want to make it great again, you have to acknowledge the wrongs. You have to repair. And it's just the truth, because it started when one person wore the hat. It started years ago, but it ignited another flame. And I think that flame, in a crazy as it sounds, needed to happen because we needed to recognize, again, as Eddie Glaude said, that this was us. And this is how we were. And a lot of us were wearing masks. And in process of wearing the mask,
the right answer is to go in the wrong direction for a while. And that to me is what happened in 2016. And if I have not made it clear, I'm not a Republican, nor have I ever been. I am a conservative person generally, but I'm a Democrat for life. And I do believe a mistake was made. And to me, Trump is an example of what happens when you pick a wrong person with no oversight and lack of the personal skills and the personality, the integrity that we need at the top. And it's my hope that things will change in 2020 for the better. Having gone the wrong way for so long, and COVID-19 is a perfect example that you can't fake the funk. You can't just, reality and science are real. People believe in science. And they should believe in science. Doesn't mean we don't believe in God. Doesn't mean we can't hold a Bible in front of a church. But a lot of this is just the reality of you have an incompetent president. And a lot of people are trying their best to save him, mainly because he echoed some of their same and espoused a lot of their same beliefs system. But he is so chaotic at this point that he's beyond dangerous. We're at Americans dying that could have been prevented, and we're at lack of international security concerns that didn't need to be there, and a loss of the prestige of, I'm going to call it what it was. It was prestigious to be an American in the past. And now
you almost don't want to say, because I almost don't want to tell somebody, I'm American. I'm trying to learn how. I'm not from this country.
Right. Like, where else could you be? I don't pretend I'm Pakistani or Indian or South American. I got a couple of options here.
Yeah, because it's just real. And the thing about it is, I think, because we really, and be sure, we really did come in and make people understand that this is a holiday weekend, but we are facing a pandemic. So I suggest, it's just a suggestion, but hey, it's called a life suggestion, like living to see tomorrow and the next day. Nothing is guaranteed, but let's increase the odds a little. I suggest if you want to have fun with the family, if the family ain't already immediately in your home, let me suggest that you Zoom them. And everybody Zoom each other. And you talk to each other and you hear the camaraderie and everybody barbecue at home. And you make a plan that when this is better, because it'll be greater later, that you'll get together and you can celebrate every holiday. One room you can have set up for Christmas. One room you can have set up for 4th of July. One room for TT's birthday. You know what I mean? And little Ron birthday.
And keep it moving.
And keep it pushing. Yes. Every birthday miss. You can have 10 to 15 cakes on the table if you want. It's your party. You can cry if you want to. But I want you crying tears of joy, not loss.
Right.
So
Right.
the other thing is, we got to call out. I hope Mike is still around, because we got to call out some of these southern states that are Republican led, that have people that are dying, that are sick, and they decided to follow the food. And when are you going to learn your lesson? Follow the one with the sense, not the man without. Okay, the president has no sense, no knowledge, no lack of experience, no understanding. He thinks he's still on a reality show. He said his mask was, and I quote, he liked masks. He liked the Lone Ranger. Now, I'm 50, and I do remember the Lone Ranger, but I never knew his mask to be on his mouth. It was on his eye. That lets you know he lives in a fantasy world, and you got a fantasy. He's the only character he could think of. I'm surprised. At least he should have said Batman and Robin, something. But the mask is not that. He could have said, yeah, I like the old Stagecoach day when they were doing the armed robbery. I mean, they did have the mask over here too. But you don't even know where your mask belongs. And you telling people something. So my point is, in South Carolina, I did some footage. If we have it, if Mike is able to pull it up, that's fine. If not, I'm still calling it out. The governor of Florida was one of the main ones that was on point, saying that COVID was fine. There was no problem. There's no issues. There's no this. There's no that. And your state is one of the leading states that's having to roll back everything and climbing higher and higher every day with COVID-19. We are going backwards because of state governors who are following 45 into the abyss and taking people that don't want to go. This is another form of slavery. You are taking people who have no control over their lives because you're making the decision to go back. We are back in a situation because you wanted to come out. We're back in a situation because y'all wanted to go to the beach. We're back in a situation because you want to make money. And it wasn't until I think they said it was a Saks, one of the big, with the stock market, they broke it down with Trump. And that's when the Republicans really started trying to listen. They broke it down with dollar signs, that if you don't get this pandemic under control, this is how much money you're really going to lose. As opposed to, this is the money you could lose if you just shut this down, put these masks on, and let this pandemic, slide through, and we try to get a cure. Then everybody said, okay, now you hear them saying, well, get the mask. Get the mask. So the thing about it is, when they're doing stuff like this, people, get your mask. Get your mask. You got a backyard. If little Johnny want to pop a few light firecrackers, those little things spinning, let him spin it in the backyard. He'll be okay if you let him. You'll be okay if you listen. And she's telling you, as she said, biochemist, but knows, and we've had a doctor on that told us, what did they tell us, Cherie? And we're going to leave people with this. Cherie, what did they tell us?
Stay home. Please stay home and stay healthy.
And what did the doctor say that we had on? And what do you say as a biochemist? You said the doctors don't really know what.
They don't know how to make you better if you catch this virus. Please don't make them prove that they don't know.
Yeah, they ready to prove it to you. They don't know. So I suggest you get you some good music on. Grab you, if you're not a drinker, grab you some good apple cider, a good, I don't promote sodas, but something cool and nice, healthy lemonade or something. And if you do drink, get you some champagne, get you a nice, beer, Corona or something. Sit back with the kids and just enjoy yourself at home. And anybody that want to come to your house, because if you come knocking on my door, you ain't getting in. If you ain't already in this mug, You ain't getting in it. I love you to death, but you ain't getting in. I'll see you later. So,
I'll see you later too.
All right, guys, we got number love for you. We're gonna head out and we're gonna shut it down. But what are they gonna do, Cherie? Stay home.
Stay safe.
We love you.
Bye-bye.
Just saying.